Bueno, voy a dar la bienvenida.
Okay, I'm going to welcome the following presenters. The next panel is going to talk about new materials and revolution of manufacturing. Many of you have heard about the 3D printers and how those new technologies of printing, all the progress that has been done in nanotechnology and printing of materials is changing the way how we relate with objects every day. I'm going to present Javier Martinez.
Bienvenido, Javier.
Pues nada, tengo el gusto de abrir esta charla.
I'm very happy to open this talk. I want to thank EmTech for their invitation and all of you for being here. Basically, this role that I have to take on with this talk made me thought a lot, new materials and the manufacturing revolution. And when this topic was proposed to me, I've been wanting to approach it from three different aspects. The first one is something that in this city we have to be very concerned about, and this is the history of it. That role that somehow we're thinking about what's the past for it and the history and how the engineering projects and the companies in this region have been pulling new materials and those new manufacturing processes. Talking about that topic is a whole PhD. You could be talking about the history of that in this region, but because of time restrictions, I will just do it very briefly. But one thing that without a doubt has made me think a lot is what's the role of the innovation environments. And with Javier, I've had the opportunity to share and talk about several topics related to this one. And I'm going to close talking about that. That's very attractive thing. What is the revolution of that materials and manufacturing, not just for this region, but also for Latin America. Beginning with this new topic, I want to summarize with one of the art works that I appreciate the most. It is a piece of art that you can see freely. It's in the metro station here in Medellin. Is by Pedro Nel Gomez. This is just a sketch. This could be about 52 meters by 2.5 meters height. And here we can clearly see three elements that are key in the process of not just industrialization, but also construction of technology in the region. The train in Antioquia, the electric energy through hydroelectric, and then the development and how these environments developed and innovation environments, in this case, which potentiated the textile companies. Innovation as fact, with a train system was built over 750 kilometers, and one of the important facts about it is that it connected or broke that barrier in a region, which is the geographical barrier. And for that geographical barrier, one guy who had not finished his school, Alejandro Lopez, he drew with his own hand and his technologies back then the possibility to create a tunnel, the Tunnel de la Quiebra, which finally connected the region with the rest of the world. But this is not the only aspect that we have to talk about. This brought us medical innovation, education innovation, technology, food security, something that we had not had before in this region, qualified work. I don't know if we are aware of the fact that we used to be more indigenous, we became more civilized and having more special conditions. And also we can say it as a doctoral camp change in our culture. All of this I have been able to read in one of the most beautiful history books by Professor Livia Restrepo, who is a part of our institution and who finally talks not just how the steel or the charcoal or the train cars got here, but how the medicine got here to deal with one of the biggest problems in technology, which was health and dignified working conditions, but I also have to talk about electric engineering. Around 1860, the engineers started thinking about how they could take advantage of that electrical potential, and we're going to talk about that a little more later. And they said we have to take advantage of the water, and we have a lot of water in these mountains. The first center they were able to build was Guadalupe in 1932, and they were able to launch it in 1940. But after that, there was a hydroelectrical development that this region set up for our country, and today is being very valuable in the whole continent. As a consequence of that development, one of the best companies in our companies that we're very proud of, which is Empresas Públicas de Medellín, EPM. This is a utilities company. They started with hydroelectrical development and then drinkable water. Both of these images have been courtesy of the Museum of Pedronel Gomez. I really want to thank them for giving me that historical material. But something we have to talk about is the biggest engineering works are over there, but also some enterprise potential, transportation improved, the materials we were able to see, cement companies, ceramic materials, some other industrias such as the Grupo Mundial, which for over a century has become a potential of polymer transformation.
But we also need to talk about textiles in this region and talk about Coltejer. We have evident samples of Coltejer. Every time you go on the metro and you see a building that looks like a needle, that's the evidence that Coltejer was there, showing our technological development in terms of those textile companies. Croydon, which is a company from the Cauca Valley that also brought rubber vulcanization, and that rubber vulcanization would become Uniroyal. Many of our vehicles' tires are manufactured by these important ventures. And finally, the food company with Manuelita Sugar, the National Chocolate Company, and the beer production that brought us important levels of health and celebrity. And there's one company that's called Cine Colombia, which is well known by all cultures. Cine Colombia changed the culture regarding how you should present yourselves and what living conditions should we have to be able to have healthy entertainment, including such as films. This is a cross-section for 1940. We'll continue with a cross-section. After these developments, we have the birth of construction and the most important engineering consulting companies in our region, like Integral Concreto, the Colombian construction chamber that regulated construction by 1950, approximately. Euroceramica with its tiles. And there's something that's very interesting. From the 70s, they had a slogan that was called Passion for Innovation, and they were clear with what they needed to do with their tiles and their products to be able to have a technological impact on the region. Moving forward with this cross-section, I want to do that very quickly, is the world of polymers. It's a very extensive industry with companies like Rotaplaza, Formacol, and cellulose products, including Familia Sancela, Tablemaca, Pisano, which in 1978 were beginning to provide wood infrastructure for the region. We would also have to talk about other companies that have done metal mechanics and have worked on those materials a lot more deeply to be able to promote the responses required by the regions. All of this takes us to the in the fashion system. We understand that leather is a material, and as materials that have been transformed by two people who have created innovation in our region in terms of leather work and shoes. This cross-section can include a lot of other companies, but I want to stop a little while to talk about the Metro of Medellin and this company that is part public and part private. And I'm not sure how much of it is public and how much is private. It really pulled along the industry of construction and the industry of the materials. This is a cross-section of the whole industry, and what I'd like to do now is talk about the roles of innovation environments. When we look at an innovation ecosystem, we say that we have to have participation from the state, participation from private companies. Everyone has to participate, but I want to look at the role of a microsystem, the academic role. And when I started to investigate this talk, I had a number of thoughts which are so short but are so deep that have to refer back to the previous two talks. And you could read this later on, but I think it's very important to quote the role of academics. The role of academics, where we aren't simply stuffing students with knowledge, but we're trying to let you know the conditions that as teachers we need to give our students so that they can create innovation. Because we can't just think about ourselves as scientists, but we need to think about what other people need to be able to make progress. Another thing that's very important, and I was talking it over yesterday with Javier, was that no one grows under the shadow of small people or small organizations, and great innovations are supported by very large companies, companies that have a different point of view and that contribute to the transformation ecosystem or the innovation ecosystem. The one I like the best is the one that's called Albert Einstein. It is a miracle that curiosity survives formal education. That's something that makes me think all the time in my role as a teacher, and how can I teach my students, how can I guide them and not castrate their curiosity. All of this also led me, while I was preparing this talk, I found this image, and this image is the first image when Alexander Fleming in 1928 shows the rediscovery of penicillin. Penicillin had already been reported, but he discovers something that's very important. He says we need conditions for things to grow or not grow, and so he isolated Staphylococcus and other bacteria by growing a bug, as I call it. But with this in mind, I say, so we can't just take into account universities, but other technological development centers. What are they doing? How are they improving their environment so that innovation can occur? And I create a list, and I think that there are important things to highlight. First of all, is the value of human beings in these technological centers. When we talk about the value of human beings, any of these technological development centers are a unit or a university that focuses only on preparing individuals or giving them conditions to create innovation, need to have characteristics like humility, trust, creativity, motivation. There's nothing more disastrous than when a child comes up with a drawing or somebody comes up with an idea and somebody says, "Oh, that's horrible." Many of us teachers at some point have castrated and have said, "What is that?" When we were shown a new idea, we need a multiplicity of knowledges, of skills, and of know-hows. That's one of the most enriching things about technological development centers, and I have been enriched insofar as I have been allowed to be a part of the labs where I've been allowed to be. We obviously need academic and technical support. We can't look at the universe with microscopes that were built in 1800s, knowing that we can understand light beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, and where we can already use gamma radiation to be able to evaluate things. We need cooperation and orientation, and here at EmTech, we're opening up the doors for cooperation. But I sit down and talk to Javier. It's a cooperation where we think about how we can do things better. And probably in some years, you will see us doing things together. I don't know if we'll be publishing or patenting or whatever, or just sitting down at a cafe to laugh about the world as two people who look at this initiative from another perspective. We need perseverance, we need purpose, but we also need challenges. Half an hour ago, I was a little anguished when I saw that this department is preparing a series of people, a series of individuals who are 13 and 14 years old and who are giving themselves very great challenges. And my question is, how am I going to give continuity to those challenges? And what we need is something that's very important for the entire community. We need honesty. When we mix all that together into a bag, I need this from people, but I also need institutions to contribute this, and I need the government to contribute this. Then we've created an ecosystem for the bugs to grow, or the fungus to grow, or for the bacteria to stop growing. And so I'd like to finish with this because it's kind of the purpose of where are we going. And when we look at where we're going, I need to make a list of aspects or of topics that are trending right now. And some of those trends right now, I am very proud as a person of the city, as a member of a university, to say that we are working on all these topics in this region: sustainable materials, that biodegradable materials. We use and synthesize polysaccharides, proteins, nanostructured materials, and we have a serious discussion around this because the structure isn't just that they need to have a nanostructure, but there's another PICO organization which is rather large, and that's how technologically can we use those materials. Surface interactions, this is key. How to understanding future materials, how the relationship of one material to another through their service. We're going to achieve very important developments in the materials that we use. And reactive materials, if I were to talk about that, I would have to talk about the whole environment of photocatalysis and reactive catalysis in different aspects. But manufacturing also needs to be improved, and in that sense, when we talk about the challenges this city has or this region has regarding manufacturing, we'd have to say, yes, we need to develop advanced cutting techniques, advanced synthesis techniques, advanced material transformation techniques. We can't simply think about traditional workshops, but we need to generate new manufacturing workshops and complex manufacturing workshops. I'm going to give you an example in a minute. Deposition techniques, liquid phase, steam phase. We need to be able to move quickly from the threshold that's in another phase, in another stages, and quickly we need to solidify it and that I can present it as a product. Ecosystems for growing materials. As we see on the left side here, we need to be able to say nanofibers need ecosystems, nanolayers need ecosystems, and all these ecosystems are based on lab conditions, and they're also intimately related to something that is how individuals can manipulate those scales. And we can no longer use tweezers. We need to use another kind of technologies. Bioreactors. How can I not talk about these? We talk more and more about biofactories, and we have those. The university, for example, and the National University and the University of Antioquia, all of these places have full labs where there's little bugs that are building things. I call them bugs, but it's just an affectionate term. I don't want anyone to be offended by my way of referring to enzymes and the whole work of biolabs. And we also need to talk about auto-repairable systems, self-repairable systems, and that's my research topic. How can I get a material that is damaged to repair itself. First of all, I need to try to get it not to be damaged, but if it does get damaged, how can it repair itself? And so with this in mind, looking at all this information, I found this image by Jake Evil, an industrial designer from Singapore, who used a technique which is a deposition technique to create a material that will replace casts. And I would invite you to look at his proposal, and his proposal is very simple. Doctor takes an X-ray, and then the doctor sends me that X-ray, and so I create a three-dimensional model. I make a 3D printing, and then I send you your product in 2 or 3 hours, and then the patient can leave with a product that can be washed, that there's no problem with the skin, and the skin condition can be monitored all the time. And something else that's important is that it doesn't weigh as much. Finally, to be able to achieve this challenge, we need to say that today, when we talk about nanotechnology, we're talking about a bunch of different aspects. We need to study physics, we need to study biology, we need to study chemistry, we need to study technology, and we also study something that's very important, which is the reflection of this in ethics and human areas. And the panorama that's been given for nanoparticles is this. It can be applied to fibers, to technology, to electronic parts, it's practically the future of what we're going to be doing. Everything is going to be nanotechnology, and here we're going to see a bit of that. Okay, so some steps for the future in the region. A lot of technological products have been developed that have been promoting the technology and also have produced new materials. I've run out of time. Javi's already told me this. But the final reflection I want to leave you with, I started with art, and I want to end with art, and that's which is our future. This is an image by Francisco Antonio Cano, a painter in 1913, looking at the new horizons that we want to colonize, and that's knowledge, technology, and innovation. Thank you very much.
No, perfecto. Muy bien, muchas gracias.